That, ladies and gentlemen, was a peek inside the chaos in Cleveland as Hillary Clinton supporters collided with Bernie Sanders supporters at this year's Democratic National Convention. Welcome to the Brody File. I am Amber C. Strong. I am not David Brody. David Brody is on the road in cue music.
In West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Not so sure if he's in West Philadelphia, but he is in Philadelphia, where he's been covering the Democratic National Convention, and he joins us here now. David, what's the latest down in Philly?
Amber, welcome to the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Not much love going on this week. Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, but Hillary Clinton making history, first female presidential candidate. Wow. And what did she do by celebrating? Donald Trump smackdown. Have a look.
Imagine, if you dare, imagine him in the Oval Office facing a real crisis. A man you can bait with a tweet is not a man we can trust with nuclear weapons.
It's going to be interesting to see how much Hillary Clinton decides to concentrate on her Methodist faith. That's right, faith. We had a chance to talk to one of her informal advisors, especially on the issue of faith, Bern Strider, talking about some of the prayer circle that she's involved in currently.
She has a wonderful prayer circle of other women whom every name would be known. If I shared it, the majority are evangelical leaders. And that, you know, a couple of times a month I have them on the phone with her for prayer time.
But these evangelical leaders, just so, because our audience, some folks might think conservative evangelical leaders, you're talking more just whoever within that orbit, right? Within,
yeah, these are.
I mean, I know you can't name names.
Yeah, I mean, the three evangelical women on the call are ministers' wives who have a very strong activism in the ministry and whose husbands and them are really well known in the conservative community. They're conservative.
By the way, speaking of faith, Tim Kaine, Catholic, social justice, and on stage here in Philadelphia, likable guy. Have a look.
Hillary Clinton and I are compañeros de alma. And we share this basic belief. It's simple. Do all the good you can and serve one another. Pretty simple. Pretty simple.
Of course, the big story up here, Bernie Sanders, his followers up here, supporters, they love Bernie, and Bernie got a lot of love up here. Ultimately, though, he couldn't win the nomination, obviously, but he said that they've moved this party in a most progressive way possible.
It is no secret that Hillary Clinton and I disagree on a number of issues. That is what this campaign has been about. That is what democracy is about. But I'm happy to tell you that at the Democratic Platform Committee, there was a significant coming together between the two campaigns, and we produced by far the most progressive platform in the history of the Democratic Party.
So the big question, what are Bernie Sanders supporters going to do? Are some of them going to go for Trump? Maybe the Green Party's Jill Stein? We talked to Roland Martin, liberal commentator, and he had some thoughts and advice for Sanders supporters.
The question is this here. There is no way in the world, using any level of common sense, that somebody could say, I'm supporting Senator Bernie Sanders, and then go, oh, there's no way I'm going to support Hillary Clinton, I'm going to support Donald Trump. Okay. The logic behind that is stunning, because I have heard nothing from Donald Trump that is similar to Bernie Sanders. Nothing.
TPP.
Nothing. Okay. That's one deal. Okay. So you're one issue voter. So okay, let's say so you're against TPP. Got it. All right. So what about choice? What about Supreme Court? What about education? What about the housing? What about the economy? I mean, all of a sudden you start asking those questions. The next thing you know, what's going on?
Bernie Sanders, clearly the story. Jennifer Wishon here with me in Philadelphia. Jennifer, what do you think? Bernie was a lot of the story this week.
Absolutely, and you know what I'm struck by, David, is conventions matter. And what we've seen here in Philadelphia, we saw in Cleveland that, you know, disgruntled activists need a place to air their grievances. Bernie supporters still feel betrayed. They are leaving disappointed, but at least they got to be heard. Hillary Clinton got the message. We heard that in her speech. You know, free college for all, right? Yeah. She's promised that. So, you know, I think conventions matter, and we've seen that play out.
Speaking about disappointed, a lot of talk about abortion on the stage, and I'm just wondering about the pro-life Democrats, and you know, they're an endangered species here.
Yeah, the most liberal platform in history passed here at the Democratic Convention. A call to repeal the Hyde Amendment. Of course, that's the law, 40-year-old law that signed by Jimmy Carter that says, you know, federal tax dollars can't be used to pay for abortion. Pro-life Democrats are upset. We talked to President Obama's former faith advisor. He calls this disappointing. Let's take a listen.
Democratic Party platform calls for the abolishment of the death penalty. Immigration reform is central to the platform. Criminal justice reform, all these issues that speak to the values of people of faith, to many people of faith. This enters a note of dissonance.
David, you know, now that Debbie Wasserman Schultz is stepping down as chairwoman of the party, pro-life Democrats are feeling anxious because one of the top contenders is the president of Emily's List. Here's what Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards had to say.
The decision obviously hasn't been made, and they're talking about a dozen or more candidates. It was something that I read this morning for the first time, that individual is being considered. And I don't want to be overly critical. I don't know the person. I just know that the signal that would send to the country and to Democrats such as myself would just be another step in the opposite direction of being a big tent party on this particular issue. So it's my hope that we can find somebody to be the next party chair who doesn't bring that to the office.
So David, you know, a lot of pro-life Democrats say this is short-sighted politically because 1 in 3 Democrats is actually pro-life.
Right, you don't want to alienate those Democrats.
Right.
Jenny, great to have you here in Philly.
Thank you, great to be here.
All right, Amber, we're sending it back to you in D.C.
Thank you, David and Jennifer. David's going to join us a little bit later in the show. In the meantime, an in-depth look at the party platforms of both the Democrats and the GOP. Surprise, surprise, they are worlds apart on the issues. Jennifer Wishon comes back to break it all down and tell us exactly where each party stands on abortion, marriage, Israel, environment, all that stuff. We'll have it when we come back. Welcome back to the Brody File. Well, Philadelphia has done it again, being the home place of significant national history as Hillary Clinton becomes the first woman to take the nomination for a major party in the nation. Democrats also signed off on what they call their most progressive platform yet. Jennifer Wishon is back with more.
It's a tale of two paths for America's future. Two political platforms.
It really kind of gives a roadmap for the party's principles.
On nearly every issue, there's a distinction between the Democrat and Republican parties.
We produce by far the most progressive platform in the history of the Democratic Party.
On abortion, Democrats turned their backs on 40 years of policy. They call for the repeal of the Hyde Amendment, a law signed by President Carter that prohibits the use of federal tax dollars for abortion. It's a move that alienates 1 in 3 Democrats, according to Democrats for Life. Michael Ware, a former faith advisor to President Obama, calls the move disappointing and misguided.
I think the decision the party has to make is whether we're going to continue to be an open tent, welcoming the people who disagree on such a core moral issue as the sanctity of life, or whether we're going to become a more strident, closed off, frankly less inclusive party.
On other social issues, the differences in the platforms are vast.
There's
things in that platform that have never been written in there in the history of the party.
Republicans call traditional marriage the foundation for a free society and acknowledge traditional families as ideal for raising healthy kids who are less likely to get in trouble. The Democratic platform calls for expanding rights for LGBT Americans. On the environment, Democrats call for a carbon tax. Republicans oppose it.
One of the things that we thought was really amazing, even though we're here as Hillary Clinton delegates, how proud we were that you could hear and see Bernie's voice in that platform to be the most progressive platform in our lifetime that the Democratic Party has ever passed.
Bernie backers represent a growing gap between Democrats and Republicans on Israel. Even though the platforms include similar language, both parties oppose efforts to delegitimize Israel through the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. Republicans take it further, calling the BDS movement anti-Semitic, and call for legislation to stop actions that limit commercial relations with Israel. During the drafting of the Democrats' platform, debate about Israel caused so much passion, police had to wade into the audience as activists shouted down delegates. Bernie Sanders backed a measure to end the occupation of Palestinians. Liberal activists also called for the rebuilding of the Gaza Strip.
It is apparently the most progressive platform we've ever had.
Keyes, a Bernie supporter, says this is only the beginning. They're leaving Philly to focus on electing the most liberal candidates they can to every office, from dog catcher to president. In this election, more than ever, Americans have a clear choice between two very different visions. It's also a time when Christians have a chance to make a major impact.
There's an anxiety in our culture. It should be the Christian voice that is not echoing the despair, but offering a voice of possibility and love and a future in Christ and a security in Christ.
Thanks, Jennifer. Up next, we're going to take you inside this unique church in Cleveland. It's home to a basketball court, indoor soccer fields, and oh, did we mention LeBron James has worked out a few times there? We meet the pastor behind the Word Church and hear his mission to get kids off the streets and in the pews. Next. Welcome back to the Brody File. Last week, pastors across Cleveland took to the stage for Donald Trump, but Dr. R.A. Vernon took to a different stage for a different reason. Vernon is the pastor of the Word Church, Cleveland's largest predominantly black church. He's also a member of the Reconciled Church movement with Bishop Harry Jackson and T.D. Jakes. Dr. Vernon has also been a huge advocate of social justice in the city of Cleveland after the shooting death of 12-year-old Tamir Rice. Last week, he spoke with the Brody File about the uniqueness of the Word Church, his work to help kids in the community, and his belief that true healing between blacks and whites in the United States starts with the church.
And you're talking 500 to 700 teens every Saturday at 3. We have 2 soccer fields here. We have a skating rink. We have a basketball court. They have their own restaurant. So when we bought this place, we bought it with young people in mind. I grew up in a church, of course, where it was just Sunday morning and we'll see you next week. How do you meet the needs of young people? You can't say stay out of the streets, but then don't have an alternative. So kids come walking down our street to get to our church. We grew up when Mama made us go to church. Here, they're begging us to come pick them up. And you're talking blacks, whites, Latinos from all over the city of Cleveland. This is a haven for them. I'm getting ready to bring in an artist now. You may have heard of them, Social Club. And in just a couple of weeks, where I'm going to let them just fill this place up. I'm not going to charge a dime. We don't charge when we have young people. No offering. We're not trying to make anything. We'll let the chief of police get up and talk about what happens. And he happens to be a black chief of police here in Cleveland, just like in Dallas. And I want to invite him to come to talk to thousands of young black men, predominantly, and girls, about what happens when we pull you over. How should you act in the presence of a police? So that they can hear his perspective of the pressure they're under. And we're teaching our young people to honor and respect authority, starting with God, number one, your parents, those in authority any place, and yes, police officers who risk their lives so you can live. Well, first of all, I can't discuss the Reconciled Church without bringing up Bishop Harry Jackson. It's his baby. He's the progenitor of it. I love him dearly, along with Bishop T.D. Jakes. They invited me to come and to speak on that panel. The idea is, again, for black clergymen and white clergymen to come together and, number one, learn about each other. And then absolutely, we're putting a challenge out there to caring white clergy. What would Jesus do? Dr. King, in his letter from a Birmingham jail, challenge the white church and white clergy, saying, if you are indeed Christian, how could any kind of injustice not bother you? So my loving challenge would be to our white brothers and sisters to have more conversations with their congregations. The black church has been known. This is where we've always vented. I mean, this is where we always decried justice and injustice. So I think the black church, those of us that come from the prophetic tradition, now sadly there are those who are in what we call the prosperity gospel who would even get up this past weekend and not say anything about the lives lost in Minnesota and Baton Rouge, which to me goes against the prophetic tradition of the black church. I was doing this wonderful summer series on social media, but I immediately had to conflate my series with the elephant in the room. And of course, here's what I did differently, and I would challenge black clergy here. Not only did I show pictures on that beautiful screen of the 2 black men that died, but I showed the 5 police officers from Dallas who were white, and one had just gotten married. And I said to our church, if these innocent white officers being dead for doing their job, protecting us at a protest, does not bother you, then I question your Christianity. Maybe you're too black. If 5 white innocent officers, Jesus loved them just as much as us. Jesus loves everyone equally. So yes, the black pastor has to always preach prophetically, because all the way back to the West African diaspora and slavery, we've been behind the 8 ball. So the black church pastor has to speak up for rights. We're trying to get to a place where that won't be necessary on the weekend, but right now it is. At the same time, conversely, I was heartbroken when I saw those 5 officers dead for no reason because a black man decided to do what Dr. King would have decried, and that is take lives into his own hand. Dr. King said only love can overcome hate.
Coming up next on the Brody File, celebrities bring their star power to Philly. They're stomping for Hillary Clinton, but our star, Abigail Robertson, is here to tell us what's the haps with the celebs and the DNC. That's next.
Into motion, like I was single word.
Welcome back to the Brody File. While the big names at this year's DNC were obviously President Obama and Michelle Obama, celebrities flocked to the city of brotherly love to declare their love for Hillary Clinton. So check this out. Nothing says a party like Jerry Springer. Am I right? I'm right. I wonder if Steve Wilkos was there too. I feel like I'm sort of missing out on the party. So here to break it all down and tell us about all the celebrity appearances at this year's DNC is our very own Abigail Robertson with What's the Haps?
What's the haps this week? Celebrities are flexing their star power in Philadelphia to chime in on the 2016 election. Hollywood stars are typically quite vocal about favoring the Democratic Party, so it's not surprising they have turned out in droves to support Hillary Clinton. Among the week's notable appearances, a desperate housewife, a fake president and his mistress, and mega movie star Meryl Streep.
Hillary Clinton will be our first woman president. And she will be a great president.
Even the 90s made a comeback with a performance by Boyz II Men and a Lance Bass cameo.
Motown Philly back again.
Some of Broadway's biggest names took the stage for a beautiful rendition of what the world needs now.
Love, sweet love. No, not just for some.
Lord, we don't need another meadow. There are cornfields and wheat fields enough to grow.
There are sunbeams and moonbeams enough to shine.
Oh, listen, Lord, if you want to know.
Actress and producer Elizabeth Banks is going the extra mile to stump for Hillary. She hosted the second night of the convention and recruited over 40 of her famous friends to sing an a cappella rendition of Fight Song, the anthem of Hillary's campaign.
And I don't really care if nobody else believes, 'cause I've still got a lot of fight left. It take a village
to raise a child, prepare him to run a nation. We got some hard choices, but together we gonna make it. We living in history. America, take a bow. We about to show the world, yeah, women are equal now.
Like a small boat on the ocean, sending big waves into motion.
Donald Trump may not have the star power Hillary does, but the latest polls show him leading with the general population. Back to you, Amber.
Thanks, Abby. All right, you are 1 minute, 5 seconds away from more Brody File. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Brody File, everybody. So before we go, we're going to check back in with David Brody for a final analysis of this year's DNC convention. David?
And we're back here in Philadelphia. You cut my time. We got to get right to it. Sights and sounds from the city of brotherly love. Sights and sounds here in Philadelphia. Amber, 2 conventions in a row. I'm taking a Calgon bath. Back to you.
Thanks, David, and thanks to our team there behind the scenes at the DNC. We'd be even more thankful if you bring us back Philly steak and cheese. Nope. All right. Well, for all of us here at the Brody File, we thank you for watching and for letting me invade your screen for the last 28 minutes and 30 seconds. From all of us here at the Brody File, God bless and have a great week.